Welcome into CBS Sports HQ. The welterweight belt on the line in Las Vegas at the MGM Grand, a place Manny Pacquiao knows very well. And boy, look who's back. 46 years old, off a 4-year layoff, and looking awfully good in the ring against the title holder, oh, by the way, Mario Barrios. And this goes the distance. It goes to the scorecards, and we get a majority draw. And so Pacquiao, who is trying to become the oldest welterweight champ in history, he already is. He was looking to extend that record to the age of 46 as we bring in our boxing analyst who was ringside for this one in Las Vegas, Brian Campbell. BC, Pacquiao not able to get that done in terms of making further history as the oldest welterweight champ at 46 years old. You scored this one, I know, in favor of Barrios, and so just your reaction to this majority draw.
Well, look, the scoring will be a big topic, of course, because this was such a close fight. I had it 7 rounds to 5 in favor of Barrios, but he needed to sweep all 3 of the final rounds, including the 2 championship rounds, to get there. But I've received just as much feedback, whether it's social media or text messages, of people that are split. Some thinking Pacquiao got completely robbed, and others thinking Pacquiao fooled everybody from the broadcasters to the judges and with the crowd cheering every time he let his hands go. The reality was this was a very close and competitive fight, but the bigger story, the moral victory, if you will, is just how absurd it was that Manny Pacquiao at 46 years old, who was so close to accomplishing so many incredible historic nuggets on this night, including trying to become the first boxer in history to win titles in 4 different decades, comes back a month after being inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame and looks like he still belongs among the elite in the welterweight division. Yes, we're in a bit of a down era at welterweight, which is possibly what made this close fight happen, but it really felt like a 7 rounds to 5 fight in either direction, because you had the volume and the jabs of Barrios, who landed more punches overall, against those huge counter power shots of Pacquiao, which really brought the crowd off their feet each and every time he let his hands go.
BC, what happened in those final 3 rounds as you were sitting there watching live? Was it that Pacquiao's age started to show up and he started to slow down, or did Barrios follow his corner's direction and stop showing the legend so much respect?
Yeah, it's certainly the latter. Look, we were waiting for Pacquiao's gas tank to turn up negative against him, to show him how old he really is. That just didn't happen. He fought such a balanced fight from the terms of output and activity, but it really took him disciplining the younger fighter in Barrios and lowering the output of Barrios to do that. It really wasn't until the championship rounds, like you mentioned, that Barrios actually listened to the urging of his trainer, Bob Santos, in his corner. Of course, Santos was a assistant trainer to Pacquiao for many of his big fights back in the day and knows him well. They knew that Barrios needed to act like the bigger, younger fighter and not show that respect and let his hands go. Look, I'm going to be honest with you. Ultimately, this is a disappointing performance from the 30-year-old Mario Barrios, but it was very, very close in the end. It kind of depended what you prefer. Again, the activity of Barrios against that big-time counter-punching of Manny. It wasn't prime Manny by any means, but the fact at 46 that he was still standing, the fact that he wasn't just surviving, he was thriving at times, is really a credit to him being a one-of-one alien in the history of this sport.
So Barrios hangs on to the title, and I'll ask you about a rematch here in a little bit, but on the side of Pacquiao, if I'm a judge, I get it. I'm supposed to be absolutely objective. But when I have all of the pre-fight thoughts going, 46 years old, and what is this guy going to look like? And then Pacquiao looks like that. Do you think some of the judges are grading on a curve, if you will, based on the age and the perception that goes along with it?
Look, I don't care what anyone says about judges. They certainly have a tough job. They're on an island. They're not checking social media or exchanging scores with each other, but they can be swayed by what they're seeing or hearing. And look, when the crowd stands up in unison to cheer, every time Pacquiao unleashes a combination, whether it landed or not, you're really going to get a situation where it's going to come down to what you prefer, like I mentioned, but it also sometimes Pacquiao fooling. Look, I was ringside. I could see how often Pacquiao would come up just short on those attempts. But the view of it, seeing the older man jump in there and do that to somebody who wasn't even born yet when Manny turned pro 30 years ago, which is just absurd to say out loud. Yeah, that affects the way you score the fight. Also, let's be fair, what I mentioned earlier, Barrios is the younger, bigger fighter. He didn't act like it. If you actually ask yourself who landed the bigger, better, more telling blows throughout the fight, it was Manny Pacquiao. And that's why half of the polarized, reaction to this decision believe that he didn't just win the fight, that he won it comfortably.
A look at Pacquiao's past 5 fights here as we get reconnected with BC. That majority draw at the top, and you have to go 4 years back to find Pacquiao's last time he climbed in to the ring. All right, BC, you know how it goes. We get a fight that ends this close. In the scorecards, we get a rematch. Do you think we're headed for that? And if you're Barrios, are you giving Pacquiao a rematch who turns 47 in December?
Well, look, from the attention that was placed on this fight, the sold-out crowd, and the money you get being the B-side, even as a champion, which is what Barrios was in this fight, you're getting a career-high payday. Of course, you are accepting that. The question comes down to Pacquiao, comes down to the division, and really boxing at large. Look, Pacquiao has said all week leading up to this fight, he doesn't know how much more he's going to fight. He wasn't officially sure what he was going to look like on Saturday, even though he did feel very good in training camp. And you got a lot of reports back that it was the first drama-free training camp for Pacquiao in so many years, and that he did look a lot like the Pacquiao of old in that training camp. After the fight, Pacquiao did say that, yeah, I would like to come back. I think I proved that this evening. Whether that would be a rematch against Barrios for this title, or maybe trying to take on another welterweight title holder who may not be up to full elite level. I'm talking about somebody like Rolando Romero. Could that be a fight where Pacquiao goes, let me pick off another fighter who's flawed that maybe I can beat? Or maybe the fight that Pacquiao had talked about a lot more than the man across from him potentially, and that's a Floyd-Mayweather rematch. You don't need a title belt on the line to make that one big business, even though we would be talking about a 48 and 46-year-old mixing it up again. But ever since Pacquiao lost that super fight, the biggest one in boxing history in terms of pay-per-view buys and revenue back in 2015, all he's talked about was having an injured shoulder and wanting a second crack at it. Who knows if Floyd Mayweather wants that? He didn't appear ringside like there had been some rumors he would be there. But if you have that potential to pay for your retirement and your kids and your grandkids' future, you certainly want to do that. But I think the one thing we learned from Pacquiao on this evening, that passion to keep going is still there. And if he was this close against a current champion, even if we're in a down era at 147 pounds, I think you would like to come back, because Pacquiao really isn't doing this for the money. I really believe him on that. He just loves this game so much.
And obviously now as focused as maybe ever post-politics and 4 years removed from his last professional fight. Manny Pacquiao goes the distance in Vegas against the welterweight champion in Mario Barrios, but it's a majority draw, and so Barrios keeps the belt. Our Brian Campbell with us here on CBS Sports HQ. He was ringside for it. BC, thank you, man.